Hi guys, welcome to another brave episode. I'm sitting with a Wonder Woman. She is absolutely brilliant. She is smart, she is sweet, she's kind. Wow. So I recently met her. I've had the pleasure of meeting her and I knew she would just be the perfect fit for our show. But more than all those lovely, sweet, kind things, she is a medical doctor, an author of a book called Reflections of a Convoluted Mind. She is a philanthropist. Guys, this woman is a public speaker, and she is at the helm of two of her own businesses. One, which is an NGO called Sisters for Mental Health, and the other is called Vocal Mentality, and that is where she goes around educating people on the stigma of mental illness. So hers is about eradicating the stigma of mental illness. And it's a company called Vocal Mentality. Yo! She's doing a lot. Welcome, Dr. Samke.
Thank you so much for having me, Lerato. It's such a pleasure.
My gosh, how are you?
I'm very well, very peaceful and calm.
Good. I don't get that a lot when people come here. You know, there's always, I'm okay. But I know deep down inside, there's a lot going on. But I'm so glad that you're feeling calm and you're feeling collected.
Yes. No, I am. But obviously, there's still those, the swan paddling underwater, you know. But I'm in a calm space no matter what at this point.
Yeah. You care. That's what this
is.
You care. All right. So listen, I'm going to jump straight into it because I have found your journey quite insightful. I read your book, Reflections of a Convoluted Mind. Guys, this book, I will give my review towards the end of our conversation, but this book has been so enlightening, so empowering, and so inspiring all at the same time. So thank you for affording us this gift. For you to get here, you experienced a lot. And one thing I want to say that, guys, this is a book about her journey in mental health, in mental illnesses. At the age of 14, you were diagnosed with bipolar disorder, which I've come to understand as a mood disorder, where you experience bouts of manic and depressive episodes. As I said, you've walked the journey, you've basically, sought the help, you've sought the support, and now you're in a position where you are actually educating other people. But I want to take it back to the beginning of how you actually, where it all started and how we ended up here, quite literally.
Yeah.
So family, tell me about your upbringing. What was the family setup like? What was the energy and the mood around the house?
I come from a very loving, warm family that's very Christian and religious. I'm raised Anglican. Okay. So, it was my mother and father taking us to church, and you'd sit those 3 hours as a child and you're thinking, oh my gosh, when is this going to end? Because it felt quite torturous as a child, because it was so strict.
Yeah.
But I say that because a lot of my issues that related to my mental health, that aspect played a role for the fact that when I was diagnosed, I became somebody who was deemed demon possessed. So initially, before I fast forward to that, I was showing behavior that was increasingly abnormal as time was going on. So this is my year in grade 9 in high school, basically. And I was becoming very withdrawn. Because I was very quiet and shy at the time anyway, there was nothing too untoward initially. But as time progressed, my behavior became increasingly abnormal, becoming very irritable, becoming very very hostile towards other people, and also saying I'm speaking to relatives that were deceased as well. I was saying I was communicating with them. I was feeling that the things around me were now communicating with me as well. The outside world, I felt that a billboard was dedicated to me. It was about me. So I was becoming psychotic and manic as well. Manic and psychotic. Yes. So manic, as you described, mania, the irritability and disorganized behavior, not sleeping enough. And the behavior escalated and I became psychotic. And then that's when my parents acted and then took me to a mental health care facility where I met a psychologist. That's the first mental health care provider that I met. And from then on, the journey began with my illness. And it was a very, very difficult time because I didn't know what was happening. And it became something that was very unwelcome. People didn't understand it. If you think back to 2001, when KwaZulu-Natal, it's not as much as we're having social media where we talk mental illness, mental health matters. At that time, what was that? Who was I in that identity? So I had this admission where I was being exorcised in the hospital ward as well because people did not understand what was happening to me.
And I want to come to that. So at what point did your parents say, okay, this is way too much now? Was it when you started speaking to, like you say, the deceased, where you could see people who had passed away, where you were seeing yourself on a billboard, all of those things? What basically said to them that this is now an illness?
It's exactly that. When I was becoming a bit irritable, teenagers are usually stereotyped as being moody people. So, I was 14, entering puberty. So at that time, there wasn't much of a concern. They may have noted an abnormality in the change in how I was behaving, but that wasn't something that alerted them to say we need medical support, we need interventions. And I'm grateful that they took the route that they did. They were very open-minded in trying to engage, the religious aspect, and the medical support, which I think has been my saving grace to being where I am today because it was an integrated approach. But at that time, it was the psychotic behavior when I was saying I'm hearing relatives who had passed on, I'm hearing voices, I'm communicating with my mother's deceased sister, deceased mother, my grandmother, and that is when they thought, no, this is no longer normal anymore. So when the behavior was becoming like irritable, they didn't really act up until it needed something. It was uncontainable, basically.
It was uncontainable.
Yes. Yes.
So tell me, look, I know in different family households, and you mentioned quite an important aspect, which is that you come from a Christian Anglican background.
Yes.
Did your parents initially think, okay, maybe let's invite Pastor Smang to come and pray for her? And then did that happen, or was it straight to the hospital?
Oh, no. The spiritual aspect, I think, came first. Because they did not understand what was happening to me, and they did invite members from different church bodies. In our communities, you engage with people not only from your church body, but people from your workplace will bring their pastor and their pastor. The neighbor's pastor will bring their pastor. So it was that kind of a engagement. But other people did not understand to say, okay, we're going to pray for her, we take her to hospital. It wasn't like that. There were people who thought she's demon possessed, and that's when the stigma related to me being exorcised in the hospital ward, being made to scream the name of Jesus in the ward. It was something that wasn't done in my family because I come from a conservative church background. But other people who did not understand, it's quite fixed in my memory because I remember that the look on the people's faces was not of compassion. I think they were scared as well and concerned. But imagine as a 14-year-old, the whole ward is full of people coming to pray for you. It's like you've done something wrong. I did not see that as care in my mind because now I'm being made to shout the name of God. And it's like, say Jesus, say Jesus, say Jesus.
Come out.
And absolutely. And obviously I'm complying, but they thought they're casting out a demon from me in me complying and saying the name of God and saying it louder according to what they were telling me.
So in your book, you do describe that. You do go into detail about the being subjected to exorcisms of sorts. And, you speak about how even when they would come to your home to pray for you, they would not eat or drink what was offered to them in case whatever, whatever demons had possessed you would transfer onto them as well. How is the relationship now with church, with men of God? Have you excused it because you now know better, which is that they didn't understand? Or have you written off, all of that because it was just too traumatic for you?
Before we even saying church, man of God, the man himself called God and I were in conflict. I was in conflict because I thought, if I'm told that I'm demon possessed, what kind of a God will put a demon in a young girl? Why am I the weakest link? What did I do? I pray all the time. I go to church every week. So why would God choose me? Because I was still buying into what people were saying. It left me very alienated. So before I had conflict with the church body itself and having conflict with, people of the church community in general, my issue was with this God who can allow a demon into a young girl. What had I done wrong? What prayer did I not say? And it's been a beautiful journey, I must be honest. Beautiful, not saying it was smooth, but beautiful because it made me seek God deeper personally for myself to help me understand this. And I think because it's hindsight that has taught me to realize that people did not understand. They meant well, they did the best that they could with what they had, but it was damaging. And I think that's what makes me speak so openly about this element of spiritual stigma or church stigma or religious stigma, But for me, it had to be, my relationship with God was very conflicted, and I struggled to relate because I felt like an outsider in a way, because I thought, what had I done wrong? What had I done wrong that other people did not have to go through what I went through? But as I pursued God for myself and defined Him for myself, I then realized that I know how to say that I have bipolar disorder. It is a mental illness, but my spiritual side is equally important. So it's been a journey. And my relationship has strengthened, and I've also become more open-minded. And I'm grateful that I get invited in churches now so that people see someone who is also a believer. So it's been a full circle moment, if I can call it anything.
I want to talk about your degree, your medical degree.
Yes.
And how it was obviously very, very, it was a tumultuous time. You were 14 years old when you were diagnosed with this. So you were already on medication. Now entering into the medical degree, which is tough, which is very demanding. You need to be all together there. How did you get through that medical degree with the medication that you were on?
I laugh because you've described medical school exactly as how it is.
That's why I went there.
And, it was tough. Yeah. So I had performed very well in matric to have been able to get into medical school. So I think somehow a part of me zoned in, or that part of me that can go on overdrive helped me to get through my high schooling career. And just to backtrack a bit, I became ill in grade 9. Then I think things calmed down a bit. And then I think the pressures and the stresses that took place, university years are quite a difficult time in general, that part of our lives. So first year, second year, third year, I had come in with a bursary. My bursary kept being renewed every year. Then third year began, and it was chaos. I was admitted twice a year at times. Sometimes, and it was annually since then until I finished. So I did not finish in record time. And it's one of the things I talk about the fact that what is record time? It's not written on my face that I didn't finish in record time in medical school.
Pressure.
Absolutely. It was very difficult for me because I was not accepting the condition. Remember, at that time, I was maybe being made to take the treatment when I was 14. Come medical school, I'm seeing patients who have serious mental illness and serious symptoms. And I thought I had a sense of them versus me. So I'm seeing patients who are behind those bars in a psychiatric ward when I was doing the psychiatry rotation. And I thought, I can't possibly be them. And little do I realize, as I say, that I'm definitely one of, there's no them and me. But because when I'm well, I was comparing my well state versus patients who are unwell, I couldn't relate. And because of that, I rejected the medication. I was not adhering to taking treatment. I was not complying to taking treatment. And I would relapse over and over again because I wasn't taking my treatment. I wasn't accepting the diagnosis. I didn't understand what people meant when they said, I have this bipolar. So it was a journey of acceptance. And I say, I was diagnosed 21 years ago. But I only accepted my illness 16 years later, which is very recent, actually. So I intellectualized that I have a mental illness. But the acceptance and really engaging with my illness and having a relationship with it is something that's quite recent.
Oh my goodness. It's interesting how you say them and you. I suppose at that time you were seeing people, like you say, who were gravely ill. who were no longer concerned about their look, their appearance, how they show up, They were just in that state. And you were in a state where you were feeling in control still. And that's why it was probably very difficult for you to connect with that. Professionally, you are now a medical doctor.
Yes.
Again, the dichotomy, you are a medical doctor, you've got patients who are coming in and out, you're looking at their state. At this point, you had already accepted the illness, right?
Yes.
Okay. Did you have imposter syndrome associated with that, to say, it's interesting, I'm treating people and I'm a patient myself? Did that imposter syndrome come to you at all? Is it something that you grappled with or not?
Not at all, actually. I found it to be a two-edged sword, a blessing and a challenge. A blessing because I have that understanding. I feel that myself choosing to be a doctor was related to my illness. I probably would have been something else had this illness not come as early as it came. I had such a curiosity to understand what was going on with me. And sitting with patients, for example, who have bipolar disorder across me, and I'm sitting as the doctor, I have a greater level of empathy and compassion because I truly understand the journey. Obviously, in my professional capacity, I'm not going to now I know people know that I have the illness, but in the professional space, if I'm well, I can function like everybody else. It's just like saying, if I'm a doctor with diabetes, do I have imposter syndrome treating a patient with diabetes? And the answer is no. So it's the same thing as bipolar disorder. With my illness controlled, I can perform my role as a doctor well. And it informs me. I feel that it informs me. The imposter syndrome, definitely not in that sense. But I'd say I am able to empathize better, have a greater level of compassion and a greater level of sensitivity because I know what it's like to being on the other end of the consulting table or consulting room.
I like that because in your book, there's a part where you say, I believe that the best storyteller about mental health issues is the individual who is faced with the struggle directly. That speaks to me a whole lot because I myself speak publicly as well. And I tend to talk about things that I naturally have lived, have experienced. And so there is that emotional connection with the audience. But I touch on imposter syndrome because even, as I speak, I walk into rooms where there's other speakers as well, and I am challenged by the speakers sitting next to me, and I'm challenged by even the audience, I'm like, am I in the right place? Can I really do this? Do I have what it takes to do this? But you speak of acceptance. And I think where a lot of people still struggle with that area of imposter is if you haven't accepted the journey, the gift, the purpose, you will struggle with certain things that come with life and all the opportunities and the challenges presented ahead.
And I smile at you saying imposter syndrome because that word has been swirling around me since last week.
Really?
So for the fact that I find that the imposter syndrome is when the recognition and the respect for what I do has come up, and I'm thinking, I've never really paused to realize how impactful it is and how helpful it is because I was just doing my journey. I felt like my story needs to go out there. Somebody may need to hear this. So the imposter syndrome, I think, has crept in only recently now in seeing, whoa, the impact or the reaction to what I do. So I won't say I've never experienced imposter syndrome, but just not related to my illness itself and being as a doctor. But those symptoms have creeped up in my life and quite recently so.
You, in the book, speak about an incident that really, I suppose, helped you pivot quite a bit. And at the time, you didn't see it as help. You saw it as scorn, as all kinds of things that were happening at the time. You are working was it a mental health institution?
Yes.
You were working at a mental health institution, and then you had your relapse.
Yes.
What did that relapse look like? What were the consequences of the relapse? And does it still impact you? Those consequences, do they still impact you today?
That relapse birthed the Dr. Samke Ngcobo that people see today. It was one of my life's worst moments, but one of my biggest blessings. I was heavily triggered all the time recalling that incident, and I'll narrate it briefly, just to say that I was becoming increasingly manic from a period, say, my relapse was February 3, where I got admitted to a state facility 2020, so just before lockdown. I was displaying manic symptoms since the year before November, according to my psychiatrist. Obviously, I had no insight to that.
Yeah.
So I was building up, becoming increasingly unwell. Yes, and unknowingly unwell.
Are you on medication at this point?
Yes. At that time, I became forgetful of my meditation. I was very stressed. It was a very challenging environment. And then I was starting to relapse, basically forgetting, and the stress levels were quite high.
Yes.
So I was increasingly becoming unwell, and I'd forget my treatment as a result. But the stress was the biggest thing that was pushing me towards the relapse. And I had started this WhatsApp group at the time called Sisters for Mental Health.
And who was on the WhatsApp group?
I invited everyone I knew, basically.
Friends,
colleagues. A large number was colleagues, a large number was friends, a large number was people I don't know, because we had started with someone else. As I was becoming unwell, I decided to change the admin on that social media group, which is the WhatsApp group, and made myself the admin.
Okay.
As you can imagine what that would be, because there's no one stopping me from what I'm saying. So I left about 10 voice notes. I was psychotic, I was manic, and I was saying all things you should not say, or I would not normally say. I was not even just manic and irritable. I was speaking about people watching us. I was speaking about the world is watching us. I was completely out of control, and no one could stop me because I was the only admin in the group. Due to a series of unfortunate events as well, there were issues related to when my salary was paid and all of that, and I ended up in a state facility because I was also that unwell. So I had to have an involuntary admission, and that is what birthed the activism in me that you see today.
And I want to go there because it's, you went through a lot in that state facility.
Yes.
I couldn't believe it. I was in sheer disbelief when I read that. And it pained me. It pained me so much listening to that, to say the levels at which people are subjected to just because they are deemed to not be able to do for themselves. Already there's a limp because they're incapacitated and they're there to get help.
Yes.
They're there to get help. And perhaps you can maybe explain, what the conditions were that you were exposed to. I think there's a page in your book where you literally go into this. And there's an incident where I see you standing in a queue to shower. And there's about a couple of you that are waiting for the next person to finish. Please take us through that. What is the logic behind that?
There's certain things I don't understand in what happens in state facilities, and I've always enjoyed the luxury of being in private health care. So I've worked in state facilities as a registrar in psychiatrist in training, but I've never been on the other side to know the things that happen. And I have to highlight that it's not all state facilities. That particular one sobered me up. It woke me up to the realities of what it's like to being a patient with a mental illness, and you're not getting the care that is you deserve, or have a right to, rather. So I recall that incident where we are standing, in a queue waiting to shower, and we all have our things to get ready in the queue, and the approach, and I speak about, it's like we were cattle waiting in a queue to be sheared, or sheep waiting to be sheared. And also toilet paper. Why was it cut up into pieces for us to use? We were not a danger to anybody at that time. There's things I would like still to have an explanation to. Why are certain rules in place? What are they to serve? But I think it's that lack of dignity and humanity. And there's a sense of, we are your carers, you are the patients. And who can speak for those people? Because they don't know any better, I think, in terms of their rights. I was aware of my rights because I've worked in mental health care services. I knew the forms. And sometimes when I speak to my parents during that admission, they'd say, stop talking about your rights. You're not going to go out. Because they thought it's part of the illness. And that angered me even more, because I thought, why must I negotiate that? And I think there was a level of punitiveness, because I think they deemed me to want special treatment because I'm a doctor. But there were certain things that were related to my rights that I feel were being infringed upon. I was so mad. And that's where I decided to be this Dr. Samke that people see now. I was in a psychiatric facility, in a state facility, and I said, for anyone who has experienced this and can relate. And they may invalidate my experience, it's fine, but my story cannot be kept quiet for whoever who cares to read. Hence, Reflections of a Convoluted Mind. It was sparked by that passion and that anger, and I wanted to harness those painful emotions in a manner that's not destructive. So I didn't want it to come from a place of an anger that goes nowhere, but in an anger that empowers, and in an anger that's fired up, in an anger that is not toxic and destructive, but in a way that empowers other people to relate and understand. And I felt that writing my book to harness those feelings would be that tool that empowers and helps and makes people see the plight of people living with mental illness in a compassionate and empathetic way. And I felt a responsibility as a doctor as well, because I felt that speaking with that experience, I felt a responsibility after that to use my experience and knowledge to empower the next person.
Sure. I always say that we don't go through things for ourselves. We go through things for other people. I definitely believe when you spoke earlier on about the anger that you had towards God, why would you plant something like this in me? Why me? Something this cruel. At the time, it appeared to be cruel.
Yes.
Alien almost, because you weren't aware of anyone else around in your immediate surroundings who also were struggling with the same thing. And sometimes, I think about you now and what you're saying now, and I think there's a gift there, and you don't see it at the time as a gift to the world, but that is, I can't say it in any other way aside from saying that you were chosen to carry that for other people.
Wow.
That is really the only way that I see it. I have my struggles. I've had my struggles. I know people who have struggles, but the ability to turn that into something that can be useful in the world is the gift. And so thank you for that.
Wow.
It's not something that you would have recognized back then, but look at you now, look at you today, and how many lives are possibly being impacted by the psychoeducation that you're doing, by the book that I've just read, which I still promise to give a review on, by the way.
Yes.
Because it is exceptionally, exceptionally powerful. I myself, in fact, preparing for this interview, I realized how little I knew about just mental illness in general. And then zoning in on bipolar, I realized that I actually don't know a lot about mental illness. So for some of us who are entrepreneurs, I'm saying we would love for you to also tap into our institutions because you speak in corporate environments, which is fantastic. But there's so many other stakeholders that need to be aware and know, because wow.
Thank you.
Samke, I have to ask about your circle of friends.
Yes.
You spoke about family and how supportive your family was. Did you lose friends along the way as a result of your manic and depressive episodes?
That's a very powerful question to ask, because looking just briefly, one wouldn't realize that some people have found my illness to be too much along the way, because you and I are sitting across each other and we seem glammed up as best as we could. And other people who have been close to me have seen the other side of Samke, the Samke who's not well. And it's a lot. And I personalized it when one friend bowed out and said, I can't. And initially, I was very hurt. I felt betrayed. How could she? And then I reflected and I thought, I respect her for saying that she can't. This is a lot for her. But obviously, when things picked up, they wanted to come back. And of course, it doesn't work that way.
When you were well again.
Yes.
Okay.
And unfortunately, I come as a full package. So along the way, yes, because there's people who know me who will know Samke is not fine here, but other people couldn't tell, this is the illness speaking, this is Madam J speaking, or this is Samke actually saying what she's saying. Because when I'm manic, I become irritable, I'm dismissive, I'm brash, and people who can't separate the two may then think whatever I'm saying in that state is what I mean. And it's very difficult and painful to realize that the condition itself has cost me, and I didn't want to acknowledge that because I thought people have accepted me, warts and all, and it's not everybody. But with that said, I am so grateful for the people that have remained to be part of the journey, and it's helped me. Somehow I feel that my illness helps me sift out the people who really do need to remain in my life, and there's no resentment for people who have walked away and whatever their reasons were. But definitely my illness comes with the price. Samke comes with the price of this condition called bipolar disorder, and I'm a whole package. I can't only present the philanthropist and the author. Yes, I come with everything, and I just stick with those who embraced it all.
You describe the illness as a very expensive illness. Talk to me about the expenses that come with your mental illness.
It's very expensive, and in that it's an illness that marginalizes, I believe, even more, in the sense that in our country it's about who can access the quality of care. I'm sitting here having a conversation with you, presentable, because I've got the optimal care. But even I myself receiving that care, I complain and I'm like, my goodness, it's so expensive. I spend almost 10,000 Rand outside of medical aid. Yes. There's the one medication that I take that is worth 7,500. And medical aid pays a portion of that, of 5,000 Rand, leaving me to pay the co-payment just for that one of 5 that I take. Then they're seeing the psychiatrist regularly. Then they're seeing my psychologist regularly. And then the you know, there's that allocation that medical aid has, but it's 15 combined for psychologist and psychiatrist. And because of the severity of my illness, that just gets depleted within 3-4 months of the year. So
medical aid does cover.
It covers, but not enough for the kind of illness that I have. And it saddens me because there's people in state who do get the care, but there's waiting lists, there's all these issues, there's accessibility of the types of drugs that might not be available in state because of the cost related. Like I'm saying, the one is 7,500 Rand alone. Medical aid only covers 5,000 Rand. And people may say, at least you can afford it because you're a doctor, but imagine a whole portion of your income, a large portion, goes towards maintaining your sanity. And that's the injustice of it, you know, that I have to prioritize my mental health just like I would prioritize paying a car installment or my accommodation and all of that, because of the fact that, yes, it's as important as that. And I'll say, wow, I have not relapsed over the stress that has taken place. So along with whatever is a priority, those top debit orders you have, my health issues come at the top, and it's expensive.
Sure. You know, when you spoke about marginalization, it's that. And you put it so well when you said the fact that I can come here, look as presentable as I do, speak the way I do, for me it is important as, I suppose, the food, electricity, accommodation.
Absolutely.
It's that. That's how it's in your budget list.
Absolutely. It's not like the flu where you can say, no, I'll just treat with Corenza C and, you know, just take a bit of, you know, a little symptomatic treatment and it'll go away. No. If I don't take responsibility for my mental health, it's the difference between me being like this and me being a completely different state. So it's not optional.
From a lifestyle point of view, what are the no-go zones? Like, what don't you do? What can you do? Are there limitations to how you get to live your life out loud?
No, absolutely. I know that whether I want to or I don't want to, alcohol does not come as a part of an equation, because with bipolar disorder, substance use, no matter how small, is not good, is not something that is recommended at all. Okay. So I've never been somebody who really drinks as such, but I have no issues against people drinking or anything like that. But my option, it's not optional for me to say, oh, I'll have that glass of wine, because your tolerance and my tolerance with bipolar disorder might be different, because I can end up having a dual diagnosis of substance use disorder as well, related to me having the bipolar as well. So I don't drink. I have to have a healthy lifestyle. Sleep is important. It's not, oh, I can go through for 3 hours, 2 hours. That can risk me even having a relapse, in the sense that sleep is very important for my mind to rest, you know. So I have to have a very balanced lifestyle in order to remain well. And it's a holistic approach. Okay, it's very cold for West Cliff stairs, but my health, the hiking I love doing, it's good for me to connect with friends, my psychologist, my psychiatrist, exercise when I can, or I should be exercising regularly, but it's very important for my well-being. So it's a holistic approach. It's not about saying, I just take tablets and that's it.
Yes.
Or I just see the psychiatrist. It's a holistic approach.
Yeah. Tell me something. I've always believed that a lot of us have struggles, our own struggles. We do. As it relates to bipolar, what are those telltale signs that as a family member, as a friend, as a colleague, I should be looking out for? At which point can I then say to my friend, my family, that I've noted the following in you? Maybe there's a problem here. And if they resist, what responsibility do I have to that person, especially if they're an adult?
What you're saying is critical, because it's been one of my saving graces where people can pick up the illness or the relapse before it's an overt one that leads me to ending up in hospital. And it's the fact that they pick up the signs before it becomes something bigger than what it needs to be. So, for example, if they know that I've got a significant stressor, they'll monitor me even more, so they'll want to see me more often. And I've learned to see the value of their feedback. So if I become more overly excited, I'm a very calm person. But when I'm Madam J, that state of mania, I become abnormally excited, where it's impulsive as well. So in the sense that it's overly excited, a bit more impulsive, where I'd be like, the spontaneity becomes a bit too rapid than I normally would. I'm more rational. I'm somebody who thinks things through. But when I'm not well, that happens. And the other big thing that's a telltale sign with me is the irritability and the lack of sleep, where I become more goal-directed. Maybe I can walk around, be doing the same thing a bit too repetitively. And then it's a concern but you've just had a cup of coffee about 30 minutes ago. Now you're making another cup of coffee and another cup of coffee, kind of a thing. Or being more goal-directed, becoming more busy. So maybe I have a list of to-dos that is like 5 things. Yeah. All of a sudden, I've got 15 things to do in the day. Being more goal-directed than usual. So it's picking up those subtle signs has been the key to helping me not end up having an overt relapse where Samke is now in hospital.
Okay.
And there's been implications related to my illness and related to financial. And I spoke about that where if they find me to be spending abnormally than usual, Samke, what is going on? Why are you okay? Then I might not be aware, and then they bring it to mind. But the decrease in sleeping plays a role, decreased need for sleep, the excitability, the irritability, those things are just those signs that people make me aware, basically, of.
And what if someone is now showing they are borderline? So they have showed the irritability, the exacerbated spending sprees, etc. And now we're getting to a point where it does feel like now they are about to have that manic episode. What do we do as family friends? Do we call on their behalf? Do we wait for it to fully erupt?
You definitely don't wait for it to fully erupt. We should aim to not end up in crisis mode. And it also depends on the person themselves, how insightful they are, because if they are not willing for you to just give the feedback to say, Samke, you're not well, then I'm like, oh, really? In the past, I'd be very dismissive and irritable and brash because I didn't have insight to my illness. Now I'm able to take the feedback when the people are saying, Samke, you're not okay. I'm like, oh, really? Then it's, we can intervene or say, okay, we think you need to call your psychiatrist and so on. But it's about finding the help. There's various kinds of admissions in mental health according to the Mental Health Care Act. So there's the voluntary admission where I can say, I'm calling, I think I need to be checked in. And not everybody has that, in inverted commas, luxury. Then there's an assisted admission where it's like, we think we need to take you to hospital. Will you come with us to hospital? That kind of approach where they can sign on my behalf and, that kind of a thing. Involuntary is when I'm a danger to myself, danger to other people. And that's when people will act on your behalf, but only if you've become a danger to yourself and other people, and then your insight is lacking and you can't make decisions on your own. So we aim to not get to a point where it's uncontainable at that level.
Yeah, Samke, sure, this has been so enlightening. I do not want it to end. I'm trying to prioritize my last question, but I'm like, but I've got 2, 3 more. When you meet new people, for the very first time in social settings, do you feel the need to communicate your illness? or do you wait for the relationship to become a bit more authentic, where you then allow yourself to be that vulnerable? Because if your quest is around eradicating the stigma that is associated with mental health, it should then be a norm. Like, I can easily say, oh, I've got low blood pressure. It's just something that I, because it's just there. So, but do you still feel like it's something that is sacred to you, or do you want to normalize it by just coming out with it when you meet people for the very first time?
Safe spaces are everything. I love because half the time now everyone seems to know that I do have bipolar because of the work that I do. So I don't have that luxury anymore, whether I say it or not say it, it is known. But in a normal setting, I need to establish a safe space, an authentic connection, and then say, just like you wouldn't just randomly come to people and say, hi, this is my status for this condition. So just like every other chronic medical condition or any acute condition, I say it in a safe space in my accord. And just because people know about my illness doesn't mean they have the carte blanche to
double click.
Yes, you call it double clicking. You always say that. It doesn't mean that, hello, how are you? Oh, the bipolar. No, it's still mine in the sense that I still have the autonomy over my condition and the discussion around it. But in terms of saying, look, hi, I'm Samke. It's not, hi, I'm Samke. Just like you won't say, hi, I'm an alcoholic. Hi, I have HIV. I believe in destigmatizing these things, but also saying it in safe spaces. So in my capacity where I talk, yes, I speak about it. In my social setting, I read the person I'm engaging with, and then it comes from me. Even if people have prior knowledge, it doesn't mean it's open discussion and let's just talk about Samke's mental illness from hello. Had you had hello?
They're intrigued because it's so different.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So in safe spaces, just like you'd say anything, oh, I have this, I have that. It's within a safe environment where I can connect about that.
I hear that. What is your definition of success?
My definition of success has changed and evolved in my growing and my becoming, I have to be honest. And I've realized that success is loving and knowing you are loved. That is my definition of success. Yes, we have trappings of what we want in life. And, there's certain things you say, when I have this, that will mean success. But I think living on this earth, knowing you are loved and loving other people is a large definition of success.
So are you living out your life's purpose right now?
I am. I definitely am. My purpose at times wakes me up, and sometimes I struggle to fall asleep because I have discovered my purpose and I don't want to look back.
Beautiful. Where can we get this book? Before you answer the review.
Sure.
I ate this up. Completely ate this up for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I dedicated a day, and you can see, guys, it's pretty. It's not thick. It's readable. It's definitely readable. I loved this. It was insightful, enlightening. It had me at the edge of my chair, and I don't say that easily, or nor do I take it lightly. That saying. It was riveting and so bare and so vulnerable, because I know vulnerability is something that you struggled with in the beginning. And for you to open up the way you have here is a gift to us. I don't know, through this show, I've been able to double click in certain areas, depending on who and what we're talking about, who I'm interviewing and what we're talking about. I don't know where else I would have had the opportunity to tap into this area at this level. So thank you for gifting us with this. Guys, you have to get a copy of this. It is absolutely riveting and has opened up my world as it relates to mental illnesses, and not necessarily, there's mental health, Samke. And that's something that we are all trying to get right. We're all trying to take care of ourselves from a mental, just like the physical. But then there's mental illnesses that we don't really, tap into the way we probably should, because we live in a society where we are surrounded by different people and different personalities and all. But I don't know where else I would have had the opportunity to step into this world. So thank you for giving us that opportunity to do that. I really loved this book. I really did. I read a lot of international books, my own fault. And so coming across a local book of a home girl, I say home girl because we're both living in Johannesburg, and it feels like home now. But thank you for this. It is absolutely beautiful. So well written.
Thank you.
So well written. So thank you.
Thank you so
Where can we
much.
get this gorgeous book?
Reflections of a Convoluted Mind is available on Take-A-Lot. It's available on Amazon.com. It's available on order online on vocalmentality.com. So they're going to have an e-shop where people can access it directly as well, where it can be sent to them. But right now, Take-A-Lot, Book Circle Capital in Melville has it at 27 boxes. So it's going near and wide as far as possible.
Beautiful. And your psycho-education talks that you do, how can people book you for those?
They can book me on vocalmentality.com, info@vocalmentality.com.
Right. There you have it, guys. There you have it. Thank you so much for doing this with me.
Oh, it's been so incredible, and I've been thoroughly looking forward to it, Lerato. Such a pleasure. Serendipity.
Yes.
And divine connection.
Yes, and divine connection. Thank you. Guys, thank you so much for tuning into another brave episode of Braving It. Thank you so much for your continued support. We love it. And want to hear your comments as it relates to this. Guys, like, share, comment, and definitely subscribe to this channel. It's going to be a wonderful, wonderful season of Braving It. This is season 2, and I can't wait to shoot season 3, but let's keep the momentum going. Let me know how this show is doing, just so that I can factor in all of your comments as we are growing this channel. Thank you for watching.